This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Hello and welcome to the Thursday Night Football edition of the Fantasy Nerds on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. As always, I'm your host, Jason Jarvie. Follow me on Twitter, at Jarvie the King. The song you heard leading into this was, of course, the San Diego Superchargers theme song, because that's where Thursday Night Football is today. It's in San Diego. It pits the San Diego Chargers up against the Denver Broncos, an AFC West battle, and it's going to be interesting. The big question is going to be, the big question could be, is San Diego, can they actually get over the hump? But I think the biggest question fantasy-wise is, how effective is Denver Broncos quarterback Trevor Siemian going to be in this game? He's been cleared to play so far, and he's been dealing with the shoulder injury, and that's really the question, is if Trevor Siemian is fully healthy and he's able to play to his fullest potential, the Denver Broncos should get back on track. They had a bad game against the Atlanta Falcons last week. Paxton Lynch started, and he showed that he was their rookie quarterback. He just couldn't get the team to that next level. Trevor Siemian, even though he's just as inexperienced as Paxton Lynch, he's shown that he has more of a grasp of this offense at this point right now. Trevor Siemian really was looking good up until when he got injured. So if he's fully healthy, I think the Denver Broncos could be really good this week. I think Trevor Siemian, it's definitely a favorable matchup up against a bad San Diego pass defense. So, and that really helps everybody on the team. It'll help CJ Anderson, who, if he has to be the main guy, the bulk rusher right now in this game because they don't have a passing offense, then CJ Anderson is going to have a tough day. But if Trevor Siemian is able to take some of the pressure off of him, they could put him into better situations where CJ Anderson has a friendlier front. He's not looking at 8 guys in the box. But I think CJ Anderson probably going to have a tough day. But I think he's going to still do enough at least to be a running back too. And then you look at the wide receivers, Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders. And going into the season, Demaryius Thomas was always viewed as the number one guy, but Emmanuel Sanders is clearly getting the majority of the targets. They still have similar yardage totals and touchdown totals. So Demaryius Thomas, he does just enough that you have to start him every week, just in case he has a breakout week. He's one of those receivers who could break out. You look at what AJ Green has done and what Julio Jones has done this year. Demaryius Thomas has the ability to do that in any given day. So Demaryius Thomas, you still have to start him because he is still producing enough. It's not big, huge numbers, but it's just enough. You have to start him fantasy-wise. And Emmanuel Sanders, because he is getting all those targets, he's a really good flex option. You can put him in. And then I go back to Trevor Siemian. I'm not sure if he's a quarterback this week for fantasy. If you have a bye week situation, he's probably a really good option. But I would be careful if you're putting him in the lineup because we're just not sure if he's fully healthy and how effective he's going to be in this game. You go on the other side, the San Diego Chargers, they're 1-4, but their record doesn't really, it's not them. They score a ton of points. Their defense just has trouble keeping them in games, and a lot of times they blow it late. So, Phillip Rivers, the quarterback, along with Matthew Stafford, they're the ultimate fantasy quarterbacks because even though they're still losing games, they are really good fantasy-wise. So I think Phillip Rivers, this could be the first game this season that he really struggles. So far this year, he's almost top 300 yards every game. He usually has a couple touchdowns. He's minimized his interceptions, but going up against a pretty solid Denver passing defense, he may struggle, and he's going to have to compete with Von Miller and Derek Wolfe rushing him all day long. So Phillip Rivers, probably still a starter, but I'd probably look at a reduced production this week. Melvin Gordon, the running back who everybody wrote off last year, he's scored a touchdown in every single game so far, rushing or receiving. So this is going to be his biggest test, going up against a good Denver defense. He's probably still going to be good enough, though, to be at least a running back 2 or in your flex conversation. And moving on to the San Diego wide receivers, Travis Benjamin and Tyrell Williams, it's really gone back and forth. One or the other usually does pretty good in the game, and it's been pretty split. So for me, I would put them in the flex conversation this week, both of these guys. If you have both on your team, that's not a favorable situation, but if you have one of these guys on your team, I'd probably be looking to stick them in the flex unless they got somebody else better for that position. And to give you my sleeper of this week, I look to the San Diego wide receiver again, and I'm going to point out Dontrelle Inman. Every now and then, he comes out of nowhere, and even though Travis Benjamin and Tyrell Williams are doing an admirable job filling in for the injured Keenan Allen, Dontrelle Inman just kind of pops in. He's the third wide receiver, and he'll have a big game. So he's going to be my sleeper this week, being that third wide receiver in the slot. And I think the Denver defense may just forget about him, and Inman could have a big day. So that about wraps up this short Thursday Night Football edition of the Fantasy Nerds. I'll be back tomorrow with the full episode. Until then, later.